In this imagined story, everything begins very quietly inside the royal palace. At first, there are only small signs that something is not normal. Staff members start noticing small changes in behavior among senior royals. Meetings are suddenly cancelled without clear reasons. Documents that should always be in place seem to move or disappear for short periods of time. Even daily royal routines begin to feel different, as if something serious is happening behind closed doors. People inside the palace start whispering to each other. These whispers are not official, but they carry fear and confusion. Some workers believe it is just stress from political pressure and public duties. Others think something bigger is being hidden from the outside world. The royal household has always been known for secrecy, but this time, the silence feels heavier than usual. Even simple questions are answered with short or unclear replies, making the situation even more mysterious. Outside the palace, the media slowly begins to sense that something is changing. Journalists notice that royal appearances are becoming less predictable. Events that were planned weeks in advance are suddenly delayed. Photographers report unusual restrictions. Still, no official statement is released to explain the situation, which only increases public curiosity and speculation. Inside the royal family itself, tension begins to grow. King Charles, in this fictional version of events, appears more distant and burdened than before. Prince William is seen taking on more responsibility in private discussions. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla remains active in royal duties, but even her role seems surrounded by uncertainty. This silent pressure builds slowly, like a storm forming far away before it becomes visible that at this stage, nothing has fully exploded into scandal. But the foundation of conflict is already forming. It is a quiet beginning, but it carries the weight of something that could change the entire future of the monarchy if the pressure continues to grow today as time passes. In this fictional scenario, the quiet tension inside the palace begins to spread outward. Small rumors start appearing in the media. At first, they are unclear and unconfirmed. Reporters talk about possible disagreements within the royal household, but no one has solid proof. Still, these stories begin to attract attention because the royal family always draws public interest, especially when something unusual is happening. Inside the palace, staff members become more cautious. Conversations are held in private corners. Phones are checked more carefully. Even normal interactions between senior members of the royal family appear slightly more formal and less relaxed. These changes are subtle, but people who work closely with the royals can feel them clearly. In this imagined situation, Queen Camilla becomes a center of attention. Rumors begin to suggest that certain royal projects linked to her are under review. Some insiders claim there are disagreements about decisions made behind the scenes. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the uncertainty creates a growing sense of instability. King Charles, meanwhile, appears under pressure. In public, he continues his duties, but behind the scenes, he is described as increasingly quiet and thoughtful. Prince William is now being involved in more private meetings than before, which raises further questions among palace staff. Some believe this is normal preparation for the future, while others think it signals deeper concerns. The media begins to push harder. Articles appear suggesting possible conflicts within the royal family, though they remain speculative. Every small detail becomes part of a larger story. A missing appearance here, a cancelled event there. Everything is analyzed for meaning. Even though no official crisis has been declared, the atmosphere has clearly changed. What once felt stable now feels uncertain. The royal family, known for its image of unity, is now surrounded by questions it is not answering. And in this silence, the pressure continues to grow. In this imagined continuation, the situation inside the palace becomes more serious. King Charles is now shown as carrying a heavy emotional and political burden. The responsibility of the crown has always been demanding, but now it feels even more complicated due to internal tensions within the royal household. In private moments, Charles is described as spending long hours alone, thinking about the future of the monarchy. Advisors notice that he is more withdrawn than usual. Decisions take longer to make, and meetings often end without clear conclusions. This creates uncertainty among senior staff, who rely on clear direction from the monarch. At the same time, Queen Camilla continues her public duties, but the atmosphere around her appears strained. Every action she takes is now closely watched and analyzed. Even routine royal appearances become topics of discussion in the media. Some reports suggest disagreement behind closed doors, but nothing is confirmed officially. Prince William's role continues to grow quietly. He is increasingly present in strategic discussions about the monarchy's future. Staff members begin to notice that some decisions are being influenced more by him than before. This shift does not happen suddenly, but gradually, as if power is slowly adjusting direction without formal announcement. The palace itself begins to feel divided into different working circles. Some remain loyal to King Charles's traditional leadership style, while others begin aligning more with William's modern approach. This creates a subtle but important change in how decisions are made and who influences them. Publicly, everything still appears controlled. Royal events continue, speeches are delivered, and appearances are maintained. But behind the polished surface, pressure is building. The weight of expectations, combined with internal disagreements, is pushing the monarchy toward a turning point. This is a stage where everything feels stable on the outside but unstable within. And in such situations, even a small event could become the trigger for major change that end this fictional storyline. Prince William is gradually pulled into the center of the unfolding situation. At first, his involvement is informal. He attends private meetings and offers opinions on key matters. But as tensions increase, his role becomes more important. Senior advisors begin consulting him more frequently. Some decisions that used to go directly through King Charles now pass through William first for discussion. This shift is not publicly announced, but it is noticed by those inside the palace system. William is portrayed as calm but increasingly aware of the seriousness of the situation. He understands that the monarchy is not only dealing with public expectations but also internal pressure. His responsibility is no longer just symbolic. It is becoming practical and strategic at the same time. Family dynamics become more complicated. Conversations between Charles and William are described as serious and emotionally heavy. While there is respect between them, there is also tension caused by differing views on how the monarchy should move forward. In this imagined scenario, advisors begin preparing for different outcomes. Some quietly discuss continuity plans in case leadership responsibilities need to shift quickly. Others believe the situation will stabilize naturally over time. But uncertainty continues to grow. William's partner also plays an important supportive role in private discussions, offering perspective and stability. Together, they represent a more modern vision of the monarchy, focused on adaptability and public trust. As pressure increases, William begins to understand that he may be required to take on a larger leadership role sooner than expected. This realization does not come with celebration, but with responsibility and concern. The palace, once centered clearly around King Charles, is now slowly shifting toward a shared leadership dynamic. And this shift marks a turning point that cannot easily be reversed. As the fictional situation continues, the media becomes fully engaged. News outlets begin covering every small development connected to the royal family. What started as quiet speculation has now become a global topic of interest. Reporters analyze royal schedules, public appearances, and even small changes in behavior. Social media platforms amplify every rumor, turning speculation into trending discussions. Some stories are accurate, but many are exaggerated or completely unverified. Inside the palace, this media pressure creates additional stress. Staff members must respond carefully to avoid fueling speculation. Official statements become more controlled and limited. Silence is often chosen as the safest response, but silence also increases public curiosity. King Charles is now under significant pressure in this imagined narrative. His decisions are questioned indirectly through media interpretation. Queen Camilla also faces increased attention, with her role being discussed widely in both supportive and critical ways. Prince William, meanwhile, is increasingly seen as a stabilizing figure. Public perception begins to shift toward him as someone capable of leading the monarchy through uncertainty. This shift in perception happens gradually but strongly influences the overall narrative. The palace tries to maintain dignity and stability, but controlling the media narrative becomes more difficult over time. Every rumor creates new discussions, and every silence creates new theories. At this stage, the monarchy is not only dealing with internal tension but also external pressure from global attention. This combination makes the situation more complex and harder to manage. This imagined turning point. Discussions about leadership become more direct and serious. Advisors and senior officials begin preparing for a possible shift in authority, not as a public announcement, but as a private internal adjustment. King Charles, in this scenario, is portrayed as deeply thoughtful about the future. He considers the stability of the monarchy and the importance of long-term continuity. These considerations lead to difficult internal decisions. Prince William is increasingly trusted with key responsibilities. He begins to oversee more operational decisions, especially those related to public communication and institutional planning. This shift is gradual but significant. The idea of final authority begins to move informally toward William, although no official public statement is made. Instead, decisions slowly reflect this new structure. Within the palace, staff adjust naturally to this change. Reporting lines become clearer, and William's influence becomes more visible. This is not described as conflict, but as transition under pressure. At the same time, emotional strain is present. Changing leadership within a family environment is never simple, especially under public scrutiny. The situation is handled carefully to avoid disruption. This stage represents a silent transformation. Power does not change overnight, but it begins to settle in a new direction. In this fictional ending phase, Queen Camilla's position becomes more uncertain. While she continues to be part of the royal structure, her influence appears reduced compared to earlier stages. Public attention remains high, and every appearance is closely observed. Media narratives become divided, with some defending her role and others questioning her influence within the monarchy. Inside the palace, decisions are now more centralized around William's leadership structure. This creates emotional and organizational adjustment for all senior members. King Charles is portrayed as stepping back from active involvement, focusing instead on reflection and personal withdrawal from public pressure. Camilla, in this scenario, becomes a symbolic figure of a changing era within the monarchy, one that is being redefined by new leadership dynamics. The tension gradually settles, but the institution itself has already changed. What remains is a monarchy transitioning into a new form of leadership, shaped by pressure, public attention, and internal evolution. In the final part of this fictional story, the monarchy stands at the edge of a new era. Prince William represents the future direction of the institution, focusing on transparency, modernization, and stability. King Charles is no longer at the center of active leadership. Instead, he is seen as a transitional figure in this imagined narrative, marking the end of one phase and the beginning of another. The royal family, although still maintaining tradition, is now adapting to a changing world. Public expectations, media influence, and internal reforms all shape the direction ahead. William's leadership is seen as a foundation for this new chapter. It is not presented as sudden or dramatic, but as a result of gradual change under pressure. The monarchy continues, but in a different form, one shaped by adaptation rather than tradition alone. In this imagined continuation of events, King Charles slowly begins to step away from public life. There is no loud announcement or dramatic speech at first. Instead, his absence becomes noticeable in small ways. He misses scheduled appearances, delegates more responsibilities, and spends longer periods away from public view. People inside the palace start to understand that this is not a temporary break, but a deeper shift in the structure of leadership. Behind the scenes, Charles is portrayed as a man dealing with heavy emotional pressure. The crown, which once represented his lifelong goal, now feels like a burden filled with difficult choices and constant public scrutiny. In this fictional story, he is shown reflecting on years of duty, personal sacrifice, and the cost of being part of a modern monarchy that is always under global attention. At the same time, Prince William continues to grow into his expanded role. What began as informal involvement in decision-making has now turned into full responsibility for many key areas of royal operations. Advisors begin to treat his instructions as final in most situations, even when official titles have not changed publicly. This creates a silent but powerful transition within the institution. Queen Camilla, meanwhile, is still present within the royal structure, but her influence is no longer at the center of decision-making. Her role becomes more limited, and her public presence is more carefully managed. In the media, her image becomes a subject of debate, with opinions divided between support and criticism. However, inside the palace, focus is no longer on controversy but on maintaining stability. This stage of the story is marked by silence more than action. There are no dramatic announcements or public confrontations. Instead, change happens quietly, behind closed doors, in meetings that are not publicly recorded. The monarchy is not breaking apart, but it is clearly transforming into something new. What makes this phase powerful is not what is said, but what is no longer said. The absence of clear communication creates space for interpretation, and the world begins to understand that a major shift has already taken place. Even without official confirmation that I am this fictional version of events, Prince William's position becomes increasingly defined as a central figure of leadership. While the formal structure of the monarchy still exists, the practical reality inside the palace is changing quickly. William is now involved in nearly every major decision, from public communication strategies to internal administrative changes. His leadership style is described as more modern and structured compared to traditional royal approaches. He focuses on clarity, efficiency, and public trust. This approach begins to reshape how the monarchy interacts with the outside world. Advisors who work closely with him note that decisions are made faster and with a stronger focus on long-term stability. Inside the palace, staff begin adjusting naturally to this new reality. Even without official announcements, they understand where authority now lies. Meetings are increasingly organized around William's schedule. Reports are directed to his office first before reaching others. This gradual shift creates a sense of order. Even in the middle of transition at the same time, William is shown carrying a significant emotional burden. Taking on leadership in such a sensitive situation is not easy. He must balance tradition with change, public expectations with private family dynamics, and stability with reform. In this imagined story, he is not portrayed as celebrating power, but as accepting responsibility under pressure. His partner plays an important stabilizing role during this time. She provides guidance, emotional balance, and strategic support in private discussions. Together, they represent a modern image of leadership within the monarchy, one based on partnership rather than hierarchy. The public begins to notice this shift as well. Even without official confirmation, the tone of royal communication changes. Statements become clearer, more direct, and more transparent. Public perception slowly starts aligning with the idea that William is already leading in practice. Even if not formally crowned in this narrative stage, today as the fictional transition unfolds, global media attention reaches its peak. News outlets around the world begin analyzing every detail connected to the royal family. What was once a national King Charles, in this fictional scenario, is now largely absent from public narrative. His reduced visibility leads to increased curiosity about his personal thoughts and future role. However, no official details are provided, which maintains a mystery surrounding his position. Queen Camilla remained part of the royal household, but with limited influence in public perception. Media coverage of her role becomes more reflective and divided, focusing more on historical context and current authority. This stage of the story highlights the power of modern media in shaping perception. Even without official confirmation, the narrative of change becomes widely accepted by the public simply through observation and reporting patterns that iron this final phase of the fictional story. The transition of authority reaches its conclusion. What began as quiet tension inside the palace has now fully evolved into a new structure of leadership. The monarchy has not collapsed, but it has clearly changed shape. Prince William now stands as a central figure of authority in both symbolic and practical terms. Even without formal, in this final imagined chapter, the palace is quieter than it has been in years. The noise of rumors, pressure, and constant uncertainty slowly fades into a new kind of calm. It is not a calm of peace, but a calm of change finally settling into place. The royal household, once filled with confusion and shifting power, now begins to adjust to a new reality where William stands at the center of leadership. Prince William is no longer seen as just a future king. In this fictional story, he has already become the practical leader of the monarchy. His decisions guide the direction of the institution, even when tradition still frames the official structure. The weight he carries is heavy, but his focus is clear. He is determined to rebuild trust, modernize the system, and protect the future of the crown in a rapidly changing world. Behind him, Catherine remains a strong and steady presence. She does not seek attention or titles beyond what she already has. Instead, she focuses on stability, communication, and support. Her role becomes essential in helping maintain balance during this transition. Together, they represent a partnership that blends tradition with modern thinking, strength with calm planning. King Charles, in this imagined ending, is no longer the center of royal activity. His journey shifts into reflection and distance from daily responsibilities. His legacy becomes one of transition, bridging the old monarchy with a new direction that follows. While his time of leadership ends, his influence remains part of the story that led to this transformation. Queen Camilla's chapter also closes within the active structure of the monarchy in this fictional narrative. Her role, once central to royal life, becomes part of the historical turning point that pushed the institution toward change. Whether viewed with support or criticism, her presence is remembered as part of a complicated and defining period outside the palace walls. The world watches closely. Some see this transformation as the end of an old royal era. Others see it as a beginning of something more relevant to the modern age. The monarchy remains, but it is no longer the same institution it once was. It has been reshaped by pressure, public opinion, and internal decisions that unfolded quietly but powerfully over time. There is no final celebration, no grand ending ceremony in this fictional story. Instead, there is continuation. The crown remains, but its meaning evolves. Authority shifts from tradition alone toward responsibility, transparency, and adaptation that as the sun sets over the palace. The message is clear in silence rather than words. The monarchy has survived change once again, but it has not remained unchanged by it, and in that silence, a new chapter begins, not written by the past, but shaped by the future.